last week, and again, really by faith, that we had struggled over the summer deciding where to send Jesse to high school and move him from a Division I, where he's playing football, down to a Division III school. And there was some concern about, whether we were making the right decision. But, and when I was really asking the Lord, as we do as Western Christians, which I was talking about last week, is we're always asking the Lord, what's the right decision? What's the right decision? I don't want to make the wrong decision. And so often that becomes our paralysis in walking into kingdom things, is because we are overly concerned with right or wrong. And I want you to imagine for a moment being an artist and sitting in front of a canvas, or being an artist in that you write books and you're sitting in front of a computer deciding, well, what's the right story to tell? What's the right book to write versus the wrong book to write? Or what's the right painting to paint and what's the wrong painting to paint? Like, should I pick red or should I pick blue? Should this be more of a pastel painting? Like, should I do balloons or should I do crocodiles? Or there's not a lot of paintings on crocodiles, so someone might want to pick that up. You might have a whole niche, croc paintings. Paintings are a load of croc, something like that for your website. But I'm just throwing it out there. I got ideas all day long. I just toss them out for free. Wondering if that's a good idea. But we don't, the artist doesn't do that. The artist doesn't sit down and try to think what's right and wrong. What does an artist often do? They just go with how they feel, right? They just go, this kind of feels right. And this is part and problem of walking in Christianity, because on any given Sunday, it really depends what church you end up in and what doctrine you're receiving, what teaching you're receiving. Because you might show up at church that says the exact opposite. Well, you can't be led by your feelings. Feelings are not trustworthy. And because one day you can be up and one day you can be down, and we go, oh, okay, right, that's right. So never trust feelings. And then we walk out the door going, don't trust feelings. And then you hear another sermon on being led forth in peace. Well, peace isn't an aroma. You can't smell peace. Oh, that's peaceful, right? Like we don't smell peace. Peace is a feeling. You feel peace, and then you feel not peace, right? It's like, how many of you can walk into a room and know that there is a horror movie on the television by what you hear, and suddenly you don't feel peace? Now, I don't know why long violin drawn out makes us feel not peaceful, but there's this anxious anticipation of someone's about to die that we feel, and maybe we've been conditioned to believe those things. But when music is chaotic and it doesn't make sense, and it's pitched and it's building, we tend to feel fear. I don't know if any of you have experienced watching a movie that is scary or has scared you in the past, and then you watch on TV and if it's really scary, what do? You just turn down the volume. And sometimes it's comical. Sometimes it goes from being really scary to not being scary at all, because you can't hear it anymore. So when the sound's off, it doesn't elicit fear. But that music and that sound responds to us, or we respond to it, and we have an emotional response. Part of the problem is that because of our Western thinking, we're always looking for what's right and what's wrong. Is it good or is it bad? Is it good or evil? Lord, what's the right thing? Is it this tree or that tree? And so some of those stories happen because we see some of those things. Now, it doesn't mean there isn't right or wrong decisions. Like, your coworker's upsetting you, it's wrong to murder them. Like, that's wrong. So that's clear. You don't have to pray about that. Lord, should I kill them? I decided to get the right feeling about it. Like, there's things that we don't need to contemplate, but then in our everyday life, we run into those decisions which aren't clear. So, for example, with Jesse, there is no Bible verse. I can't look up in Lamentations and it says send him to Seton High School. Like and don't you wish it was there? Don't you somehow wish the Bible was just an empty book of white pages And when you open it up, you would just be like, oh, and it's just like the writing would just happen. And as you turn the pages, you'd sneak in it. No words would be there. But as you turn the pages, words would just, in gold, light, would just appear. And you would just know. You know, how many of you said that to the Lord? Lord, I just wish you would tell me so I would just know. I just want to know. You see, this is the dichotomy of the trees that are in the garden. There's a tree of life, and then there's a tree of knowledge, good and evil. And it's like it wasn't enough that they had life. They wanted to know stuff. They wanted to see what God said. They wanted to know everything. And I heard someone, or I was reading something, and the gentleman said, God always has three answers, and it's never no. God always says yes, not yet, or I have something better. And I like that. It maybe doesn't apply in all situations, because again, if you're asking if you should murder your neighbor, then the Lord's saying not yet. I have something better. Kill them and all their relatives. Yeah, so sometimes it is no, but I think it's a good way to live. And so we put too much onus on whether it's right or wrong. We want to eat of the tree of knowledge. We want to know. And so what you need to think in your life is every time you are frustrated with the Lord because you don't know what the right thing is to do, just know that your frustration is Adamic, right? You are having the frustration of Adam. And it is that part of your flesh that demands to know that is going to restrain you. The demand for you to want to know is what is going to harm you and hinder you. Because faith doesn't happen in the realm of knowing, or it is no longer faith. Faith and knowledge are different things. When you know, and faith is not knowing quite sure. You're not quite sure. That's what having faith is. This is why faith is called a fight. Paul says to fight the good fight of faith, because faith requires something. And yet we're always asking the Lord, well, I just want to know what the right thing is. And the Lord's like, right, but that requires no faith. If I just come down and I just deposit manna-flavored fortune cookies for you, and you just crack them open and it's like, send him to Seton High School. He's all, oh, thank you, that was good, just in time. Awesome, what are the rest of these saying? You know? And you just go, Lord, that would be so easy. And in fact, this is what the atheists and agnostics have against faith walks or Christianity, because they say, oh, like if God really loved us and he really loved people, he would just make himself obvious and clear. And I was arguing with an atheist one time, and I go, you assume that a God would be like you. Why are you assuming that God would want us to know what's going on? You assume that that's the only good that could happen. It's a false assumption. It's a false assumption to think that the only way that you could prove that there's a God is if God existed, he would just tell us what to do, so we would do it. And you assume, let's just tear that apart for a minute. That's assuming that God's good. It's a funny thing to me that atheists disregard the belief in God because he doesn't appear to be as good as they think he should be. It's an odd thing. How do you even know God's good? Maybe just a real mean son of God. You don't know. God could be way more like the devil in our perception. Maybe God is just sadistic and likes to torment us, tease us, dangle carrots in front, and make things look like they're going to happen and then just collapse them. How do you know he's not like that? I mean, if you're an atheist, how do you know? You don't even believe in him. You're not even spending time with him. You're not doing any study to get in to actually know who he is. So why do you assume and bring God into fault because he's not good? That's a weird assumption. And to me, the very fact that they make the assumption is evidence of God's existence, because somewhere in their DNA, they go, well, that can't be true, or we don't have all the knowledge about God, because if there is a God, he's good. Why is that their assumption? The fact that they want to negate his existence because they don't see his goodness is a fallacy from the beginning, right? Why do we even start off at the position of believing God's good? Why do they start there? See, the fact is because it's in our very nature, because we've been created by Him. So there's a longingness in us that things should be just. Things should work out. There is a sense of mercy that is built within us. This is how I began to question the things of hell, because I thought, even if I could bring someone up front, and I was just with your chair up here front.
Mommy?
Poor Joe. We're going to pretend Joe is Hitler. You know, now we're going to have to edit that. Monetize it. You know, and again, this is how my questioning when I was young about hell came into question for me, because I thought, if this was Hitler, you know, and I came up here and said, you know, we all know what Hitler did and all the horrible things he did, and I had a thing of gasoline. You ready for this? See, it's not knowing, you just have to have faith. And, you know, and if I started to douse him in lighter fluid, knowing everything that he's done, and I start dousing him in lighter fluid, and then I light a match, how many of you are uncomfortable? Now, even the ones of us that really think he deserves punishment might go, well, you know, a couple minutes. We'll let him burn for a couple minutes. But I wonder how long it would take, even in an ardent fundamentalist evangelical church, for someone to come up with a blanket and put out the fire. At what point does mercy and compassion engage, and as he's wailing and screaming in pain, do one of you rush the stage and go, it's enough? It doesn't matter what he's done. If I sit here and I torture him, then am I not him? Am I not the same evil that he propagates if I in fact do the same thing to him as a retaliation or a retribution for what he's done? Am I not just as evil? If I deal with violence by enacting violence, am I not also violent if I have the ability to control this? You know, but some of you, and hopefully all of you, would be stirred with compassion. You would say, no, we can't. In fact, probably most of you would restrain me as soon as I was like going, this is lighter fluid. And people would be like, hey, whoa, whoa. Yeah, but this is Hitler. Whoa, yeah, but, whoa. Isn't there that feeling? Oh, yeah, no. But let's maybe not put a sharp point on it like Hitler. What if this is just your neighbor who hasn't said, here, Jesus, come into my heart? Which one? Jim says, which one? Let that be on the record. Jim said, which one? If you're her neighbor, move. Which one? That ended the whole message. But you know, that maybe Hitler puts too sharp a point on, but it's to illustrate that even the worst among us. But now reduce it down to your neighbor, or your neighbor's kids who don't come to church, who don't know Jesus. You know, and we light the fire. It's like, it just feels like too much. I just wanted to kind of massage it further.
Can I just
Yeah.
say something? Like in the instance of Jesse with the two lifestyles, the fear is if we make the wrong mistake, then calamity could come. Like if we make a mistake here, if there's a right and a wrong answer, and we pick the wrong one, then God, it's finally going to be revealed that God's not good, and something bad's going to happen to him or to us or in the future. That
Screwed everything up.
you're done. That we're going to screw everything up, and that's why we want to know, should I go this way or that way? Because if I go that way, that could be calamity, and this way, like you said, it's going to be gold and rainbows and prosperity, and like it's very polarized, so it becomes very debilitating. So you don't know what to do because you think this is calamity and this is awesome, and I have no idea, and I better pick the right one, or I could F up my entire life.
Right.
Like
flip a coin, 3 times heads, it goes here. Because then it's your fault, right? Then it's not like, I'm going to leave it to your sovereign guidance, right? To make a decision. And it's why people make decisions. And what is so crazy to me is that as long as I've been preaching grace, that fear, because it's been so instilled since I was a child, is very palpable. We put off that decision all summer. We were worried all summer. It's like as school was starting that week, we made the decision. It's like we put it off as long as possible because he's playing football. So I'm like, if he goes to the wrong school and we make the wrong choice, for sure he's going to have a season-ending injury. Like that could happen. And it's not like I believe it will, it's that I'm afraid that it could, because I've so done the wrong thing that God goes, well, you're on your own. You know?
Which is silly, because why is it such, because I live this.
Yeah.
Amen. And every decision is agonizing.
Yes.
Why?
Right.
Why? That seems so stupid.
Yeah.
Because why would he care?
Yeah.
Not why would he care, but like, why would we make that such a monumental decision?
Why can't God be?
Right, why
Yeah, why can't God be?
Why
And
can't
so,
God be involved? Yeah.
this is what we came to, is the Lord said to me, well, there is no right or wrong, son. There's no right or wrong. There's this. If you send him back to Centennial, it will be character building for him. And I will take him through some things, and he'll learn some things, and it'll be a character building time. And if he goes to Seton High School, it will be the time of his life. So you choose. And I'm like, oh, it's not a yes. So internally, in my fundamentalist, dark soul, it's the only way to put it, really. If you walked in it, you know. There's just all darkness there, all mixed with the Whore of Babylon and 7-headed dragons and Jesus returning and stealing your parents away from you, right? It's in that darkness that I'm going, well, character building, that sounds like the righteous thing to do. God's always into character building. Like, if I choose time of life, right there, I'm in trouble. Because I haven't chosen the way of suffering, the way of the cross. I haven't identified with Christ. I'm spitting on him when he's on the cross because I've chosen a life of ease and goodness for myself. How many want to live in my head? Yeah, it's so fun. Yeah. And then you're praying, Lord, I don't know why I struggle with anxiety and depression some days. Lord, it's like, well, I'd be depressed if I lived in your head. And it's like, I was like, oh, now I don't know. I wish you would have just said which was the right one. Now you're like, you have a choice. But character building, that's got to be the right one. Right, Lord? He's like, and Victoria really helped me because she said, well, honey, you've made that choice your whole life. How well's it worked? I'm like, yeah. If I could go back, I wouldn't be choosing all the character building decisions. So I said, Lord, I just want him to have the time of his life. I told that story last week. Patty Perry came up to me after, and she said, you made a decision for life and abundance for your child, and that's the decision your Father makes for you. He doesn't choose character building for you. He chooses an abundant life. You're worried about character building. He just wraps that up in the course of you having an abundant life. I was like, oh, yeah, I like that. You want to preach next week? And so we didn't know. So opening week, his whole team, unfortunately, was completely decimated. They lost bad. His old high school. And he goes to the new high school, and they make him the captain of the football team, and he leads the cheer. I was going to play it, but this is half just bragging and half fits into this. But they get him leading the cheer, and he's got all those boys around him, and they're all hyped, and he's leading the chant. And he goes out and scores the first touchdown in that school's history, and they win the game. And there's just like 100 people talking to him after. They have more fans than they've ever had at the other games he used to play. And there's like gaggles of people there wanting to hug him and jump on him. Even players from Division I who just came to watch him play. And he's literally having the time of his life. And the Lord's like, so where's the evil? Where's the darkness? You know, because what I didn't tell you, son, is that this is also character building. And what's building his character is all that positive reinforcement, all that goodness, all that praise, all you're awesome, all you can do anything, all speaking faith. That also builds his character. So choose life. And that's why it says in the Old Testament, today I put in front of you life and death. So just in case there's any confusion, choose life. Because literally, we're the people that go, what's the right one? I don't want to choose life because that sounds like too easy. So maybe I should choose death. Is it a trick question, God? He's like, yeah, I'm trying to trick you. Let me explain something. This idea doesn't come in a bubble. In fact, we sing one song that Victor and I have decided to pull. We just sang it a little while ago, I think. It's called New Wine. It says, Lord, you're making new wine in the crushing, in the waiting, new wine. And when you're in a trial, and I've been, and I go, oh, I like that song. You know, that's good. Yeah. There's a crushing, producing goodness out of my crushing. Right? But when Victoria and I first heard that song, we weren't kind of in a struggle. And so we were like, oh, I don't like that song, it makes me feel anxious. I don't want to go through crushing. So I thought, you know, I'm going to look up scriptures on crushing. And there aren't any. It's a weird thing that we write songs that are just, you know, and it's coming out of camps that are really biblical, right? That they put sola scriptura first, and then they write songs that have nothing to do with the scriptures, even the rough ones. Let me just be really clear about this. God is not crushing you to produce new wine. That happened on the cross. And that wine was spilled out for you, so you don't have to go through that. God's not looking to crush you to go, oh, let's see how patient Kim is. I'm going to tell you where that leads, and I'm telling you not from exhaustive research through the pages of Greek and Hebrew, but just realistic life, just where I live. See, here's the problem when you believe in trials, and I'm going to say there's not a lot of scripture, almost at all, on trials. That's almost non-existent. Yet you have no problem finding scriptures on love. No problem finding scriptures on grace and peace. I've said this to you before. Every one of Paul's letters start with grace and peace and end with grace and peace. You go through and see all of them. It was shocking the first time I did it. Grace and peace to you. I just thought it was a salutation, like, hello, how are you? You know, and goodbye at the end. But it's not. He's saying, look, my entire talk needs to be through the filter and to the conclusion of grace and peace. Everything I'm writing to you is for the purpose of grace and peace to be in your life, and it should end in grace and peace, not in suffering to develop character. You know, when you think of the different Bible stories, God does not put Daniel in the lion's den. The king did. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, when they get cast into the fiery furnace because they won't bow down to an idol, God doesn't put them there. Where God is in the fire with them while they're in the fire. When Daniel's in the lion's den, that's where the Lord is, shutting the mouth of the lions. But he doesn't put them there. They end up there because of life, because of circumstance, because of evil people. But he is there rescuing them in the midst of their adversity and their trouble. God doesn't go, well, Daniel, we'll see how faithful you are. Lions, please! King with a bad attitude, please! You know? Well, Shadrach, I know you think you're a big boy, but we want to test that faith, see how strong it is. Turn it up 7 times hotter, please! And while he's being pushed into the flames, he's like, oh Lord, oh God. He's like, come on, don't blow it!
There's only 2 ways to go.
Good
or bad.
Good or bad. Fire's bad. Here you go. And you know what's amazing is that Old Testament story says there wasn't even the smell of smoke that came out of that fire. That the only thing that was burned away was their bondages and their oppressors. The ones that throw them in the fire, they're the ones that die. Their bonds that was tying them, they were the ones that were broken. And it's interesting that maybe even the Lord allows them to go through the fire to burn off the bondages and to break the bones of their oppressors, to say, you've been free because I'm with you and I walk in the midst of the fire with you. Understand this. And it's so pertinent to our lives. And it blew me away when I was reading yesterday in Romans. And you can look it up later. I think it's in Romans 5. Scripture is so clear, and you know what's so sad is that translators change the words because they believe in suffering. And you can tell because they change the word from trial to testing so that it continues on the motif of you going through stuff. But the Bible's or temptation, they changed the word to temptation. But in Romans 5, Paul says, God tests, or the word can be trial, put into trial, or tempt. God puts into trial no man. Let no man say, God's put me in a trial. Let no man say, God's tempting me. Let no man say, God's testing me. God tests no man, Romans 5 says. But we've been taught, well, God put you on a trial. Now here's the problem. If you find yourself in a trial of circumstance, you lose your job, you're trying to pay the bills you can't, you're trying to resolve things, your kids are struggling, whatever it is, health. There's so much teaching in Christianity that says, well, bad things happen to good people. Huh? Bad things happen to good people. God's good. Just trust Him. Just wait it out. Yeah. Just wait it out. Just trust Him. God will show up. And so the problem is then you're left thinking, I just need to endure. Right? And if you go down that road, I'm telling you, this is what happens. Because I walk down this road, and this is what happens. Eventually, you'll just stop praying. Eventually, you'll stop pressing into God. Because what's going to take over in your mind is like, well, I don't know when the hell this thing's going to end. Like, how do I know that my trial's not going to end in 6 weeks or 6 months or 6 years or never? I don't know. So my praying isn't going to do anything. How's my praying going to get out of it? Like, if God's just determined that you're going to go through this for the next 6 years and that's it, tough luck. Then all your praying and all your fasting and all your crying out isn't going to do a lick of good. And that's where that leads. And so people give up. And it's why that doctrine exists, because people have given up. And they go, well, we can't do anything, and God's just God, and God's going to do what God's going to do. And that's Calvinism. That's predestination. God's already set things in your path, and if you're going to sin, it's already hardwired into you. You know, you're happy one day, and you wake up the next day, and you've got an axe handle, and it's in someone's head. And you go, oh, I was really hoping I wouldn't do that in my life, but I guess it was predestined. It's a bad way of living. It excuses everything you do, and you never change. And so the problem is you can just endure blindly. I know lots of people who do. They just get into tough circumstances and they go, oh well, I'm just going to wait it out. And that's all you will do, is you will wait. And you will wait, and you will wait, and you will wait, and eventually your faith will collapse under the waiting. Because it's hopeless, and it leads to hopelessness. I had a beautiful picture over the summer. Okay, I'll turn it back over. I had a beautiful picture over the summer, and you know, it was really weird. I was praying one day, and the Lord had been speaking to me about, you know, it's out of the Psalms, and it says, don't be like the horse and the mule that is led by bit and bridle, right? They have a bit in their mouth, and that's how you direct them, is through pain and suffering, right? It's not comfortable. So it pulls back on their jaw, they don't like it, so they do what you tell them. Because for so long in my life, I've lived in a way until hardship comes, and then I go, Lord, what am I doing wrong? Like, did I do something wrong? Did I offend you? Did I engage in a contract I shouldn't have? Have I agreed to something? Have I brought something to my house? Like, what have I done wrong? And then I'd fix it, and then it seemed to fix things, and then things would be okay. And so the Lord was trying to speak to me and saying, I don't want you to be led by that anymore, because then the only way you learn stuff is for bad stuff to happen. Like, you live in a pattern of waiting for the bad thing for direction. That's not a great relationship. But that's what you want. That's not what I'm doing. So I had this beautiful picture that I was praying and saying, Lord, deliver me from that kind of thinking, that kind of, results, formula-oriented way of walking with you. And I had this beautiful picture that I was like this horse, and I saw the Lord take off the bit and the bridle. And I kind of shook it loose, like it was so nice to have that off. And then in the next picture, I saw myself standing as a man, and I was putting the bit and bridle in Jesus' mouth. And I was like, oh, Lord, that's probably not good. Like, that seems wrong. And he said, yeah, so that's what you're doing now. Like, you are either asking me to lead you by bit and bridle, or you're trying to control me through doing all the right things. Like, if you just keep the pattern of doing all the right things, and if you act in a righteous way, in a perfect way, which, by the way, if you do that, you know it's exhausting. Trying to get it all right before God. That you just do the right things. You pray on a regular basis. You go to church, nice your wife, nice your kids. You don't engage in immoral activities. You try to keep right and keep your thoughts right, your mind right, your mouth right, and what you say to people, and how you respond, and how you forgive, and so that blessing comes. And that's a hard journey to live. And so in doing that, you're kind of putting a bit and bridle in Jesus' mouth. Like, if I do everything right, we're going to go over here where you really bless me. And I said, no, Lord, that's not right. He said, right. And then he stood there, and he just reached out his hand and held my hand. And he said, let's just walk. Let's just walk together. It's like when you and your wife go on a walk, you don't go, okay, let's get out Google Maps. We've got to figure out the right way to go in Fish Creek Park. Is it going to be left? Is it going to be right? Are we going to go around Covey Lake 1 time, 2 times, 3 times? Or should we drive to the other side of the city? Or maybe should we go to Canmore? I don't know. Let's pray. That's a hard life, right? That's not really flowy. It's not joyful. We also don't go, and I've already developed the entire itinerary of the day before Victoria wakes up. I'm up at 5 a.m., I plan our whole day, where we're going to walk, I draw the route, and I go, here's what we're doing! It's like, well, I was hoping just to do, go to Winners. I'm like, no, we do that every day, so. But I don't do that. I don't have a whole plan laid out, because it's organic. And we just hold hands and go on a walk. And wherever we go, we go. But what's important is that we're together. What's important is to walk together. And sometimes I will kind of nudge, let's go this way. Or sometimes she'll nudge and say, I want to go this way. And I go, I don't want to go that way. She's like, well, but I want to go that way because, there's no trees over there, and there's trees over here, and it's fall, and it's pretty. And I go, oh, okay. I don't go, I'm the man, we're going this way. I won't make it out of Fish Creek Park. Right? And God doesn't do that either. God doesn't go, I'm the God, we're going my way. Now sometimes he sees more and knows more than you all the time. And so he'll lead you out of danger and guide you, and that's part of the trust relationship. But it's not all for him. And I love that song, but you've got to think what Victoria's saying. It's all for you. It's all for you. You worship for you because it feels good for you. It increases your serotonin. You feel elated. You feel an atmospheric feeling of stepping into a other realm, and your problems start to go away. Just physiologically, it's good for you. God's not in heaven going, oh, I'm having a bad day. I really hope these people worship me. Oh, 12 only. It's like billions. It sucks. Plagues! It's like, he's not looking to you to get happy. He was happy before there were people. Probably happier. So it's just a journey. It's just a walking. It's just a talking. It's just a communication. So I want you to understand, God isn't pushing you into trials. We put ourselves there. We were already sick before Jesus showed up in our life. We were already diseased. We already had fear.
We self-sabotage.
We self-sabotage. We're the mountain, like I was saying in June. We're the mountain that needs to be removed. Because that mountain is the bad things we believe about ourselves and the bad things we believe about God. God doesn't need to put you in a trial. You were born into it. You were born in a trial. You were born in adversity. You were born on a planet that has walked away from God for so many years, and why Jesus came and is rescuing mankind out of it. You were born into that situation. Don't think that God is sticking you into calamity. He has a plan to prosper you, Jeremiah says, not to harm you. Again, like it needs to be said. Here's my plan. I'm going to really, really prosper you. What about the harm? Are you going to harm me, God? No, that's not the plan. Okay, can you go over the plan again? Because I'm really nervous about your plan. Okay, here it is. Whatever you put your hands to, it's going to prosper. Okay, well, that sounds good. But then are you going to drive me out in the wilderness, starve me to death, and have me attacked by lions, bears, and giants? I was saying to my dad, it's funny, you know, if you had kids and you go on a long journey and you get the question, right? Are we there yet? And I want you to imagine, you know, you're driving your little kids, you know, down the U.S. and you find yourself in Utah. Now, you know you're going to Disneyland. They've never been. You're driving through the desert on your 8th hour. This is a bad drive. And the kids are like, are we there yet? You're like, no. Well, where are we going? I thought there was going to be goodness. You said there was like this giant fun mouse. And like rides and this and that. So what? I just see, oh, I know what you're doing. You've driven us in here to the wilderness to leave us here and leave us and abandon us. That's what you're doing. We should have just stayed home. But you see, sometimes there just is a wilderness between where you are and where God's taking you. In that transition, that's never fun. Because what God is trying to kill out in the wilderness is your doubt, your unbelief, your complaining, and often you'll just stay there till you figure that out. But I'm telling you, the more that you abide and the more you press into His presence, He's going to have the time to begin to change your heart and change your mindset and change the way you think, and you can expedite your time in the wilderness. Israel didn't need to be in the wilderness for 40 years. It wasn't a time that God ordained. Well, it's going to be 40 years. No, it says that they stayed in the wilderness for 40 years because of what? They're grumbling and they're complaining. Oh, Lord, I guess this is the new reality. I guess you've abandoned us. Yeah, oh, good. Yeah, well, that person, I guess you're just dangling carrots, Lord. Thought that job was going to turn out, didn't. Yeah, well, that's what always happens to me. Oh, look, I feel unhealthy again today. Big surprise, God. Oh, look, I tried to lose weight. Didn't work out. Big shock. This always works so well. Do any of you have these conversations? You just tell by the tone there's no faith in there. There's no thanksgiving and rejoicing and faith and goodness. It's just sarcasm and anger and evil and death. And then we go, I just don't understand why it's working out. It's like, well, if you just were slightly positive, it might go better. That's why people who do the secret and positive affirmation in your life, it's like all us Christians watch them. We're like, that's false. That's all false idols. It's not going after Jesus. They're like, I'm going to be wealthy. I'm going to be rich. I'm going to be successful. I'm going to be healthy. And we're like, oh, that's all satanic. You can't just start quoting that thing and hope it works. And then they all get successful. And we're like, well, that's stupid. Why'd that work? I thought you had to do it in the name of Jesus. And they're just doing it and it's working. That's dumb. Why won't God do that for me? And then you get even more mad. The Lord's like, it works for them because they don't all have the baggage you all have thinking I'm doing something bad. I was saying to Victoria, if I didn't have the Lord at all, if we didn't know Jesus, and we ran into problems in our business where we're trying to raise money and get a product in the market, I'd just go, well, yeah, it's rough, market's down, just got to keep down, keep going, keep working at it. It's a bit discouraging, but oh well. But it's when you're a Christian, you go, oh no, Probably God's against us. I don't know, doing the right thing. No, he's teaching me some lesson, some trial, some tribulation, because I got to develop faith, you know? Thanks a lot, God. If you just, I've said to the Lord in the earlier years, if you just left me alone, I'd be really successful. If you just get out of my way and stop throwing trials every time I take a step to victory, I'm like, this is going to work out. Oh, you know, you're just free falling. And it's taken me a long time and a lot of suffering, like gobs of it, to get to a point that goes, oh, maybe God isn't doing any of this. Maybe this is my own negativity and my own dark thinking about Him doing it to me. And that scripture is so true. God tests no man. He's not in the business of doing it. But while you are in it, while you are struggling, you can say to the Lord, Lord, I don't understand why I'm here and why it's not working and why it's not coming together, why things just seem to be out of my grasp, or why I can't get my health under control, and I don't understand, I don't know where you are. He's like, great, that's awesome. Come and abide with me. Come, keep asking those questions. Keep coming and talk to me, because you should be healthy, and you should be well, and you should prosper, because that's the way of my kingdom, and my plan is to prosper you. But there are things that are binding you, and it's the things you believe, because you're in so much fear and you don't even know. You don't know it's fear, but you're riddled with it. Like some days, if we could see ourselves in a spiritual mirror, we would scream and run away. Go, oh, wow, I have cancer all over my face! And we think we're doing okay. And the Lord goes, oh my God, you don't think you're afraid? Here, I'll put you in a situation. And you just go, whoa! And you panic. The Lord say, it's okay. It's just like, you just lost your job. I've got a better one for you. But that in between is just like, it just goes to hell. You're like cursing me, rejecting your faith. And the Lord goes, we just got to exercise that a little bit. Now, He's not doing that to you, but sometimes He'll get you out of one job and move you to the next one. He wants you to grow. He wants you to learn, to trust. I saw a commercial years ago, and it was so awesome. I think it was an insurance commercial. I don't remember, for chips. I know that's a real but you know, it can be anything, right? But it was awesome because there's like this tornado ripping through this town. And cars are flipping over houses, roofs are coming off, boards are flying by. And this guy's like, it's a beautiful day. You know, and he's just walking down the street and he's just skipping and people are running for cover and boards are whipping around and his hair's just blowing and he's trying to walk into the wind and it's like he has no idea what's going on. And that's where God wants to take you, that whatever adversity, whatever struggle, whatever, you're not putting your hope in that it's going to be answered the way you think it is, but just that God's good and God's got a plan and He will march you through. And it's so hard to do that because we immediately self-destruct thinking, I've done something wrong. And the Lord goes, no, you haven't done something wrong, your whole thinking's wrong. That's why I'm trying to take you through this so you can see I'm with you and I'll be at the other side and it's going to work out. And then the next time you encounter the next thing, because I'm trying to strip stuff away from you, you'll go, well, God was there, and He was there, and He was there, and He was there. Last story. This is what Victoria was talking about. Saw this great video, this black preacher from the States who was just so awesome. He was just nailing it. And he was talking about how bamboo trees require a tremendous amount of water for them to grow. In fact, when you plant bamboo seeds in the ground, it takes 5 years of watering it every day and fertilizing it every day. It needs fertilizer every day and water every single day for 5 years before the first green shoot pops out of the ground. 5 years before you see anything. And I want you to imagine that somebody comes by when you're watering in year 3. You're like, hey, what you doing? I'm watering dirt. What's in there? I planted a seed. It's been 3 years, buddy. It's dead. There should be some evidence of something. There's no evidence. You've been watering, you've been coming out here every morning. We're out having fun. We're on the lake. We're doing tons of stuff. We're going out. We're having wings. You're watering. What are you doing? Yeah, I just watering. Fertilizing, watering. Year 3. Year 4. Year 4, 1 week. Year 4, 1 week and 1 day. Tuesday. Right? When you slow it down. Wednesday. Thursday. We should do a service where I just go through all the days for 5 years. You're like, oh, this is never going to end, this message. But you think that every week, so it doesn't matter. But you know what's amazing? Is the day it cracks the ground, in 5 weeks it grows 90 feet. 5 weeks it grows 90 feet into the air. It is one of the hardest plants on the planet, structurally. I mean, they just cut it down and start building houses with it. It's an amazing, amazing plant. But 5 years of dedication, what Victoria said, of consistency, of just going after the Lord. Lord, I don't understand. Show me your ways. Show me what you're doing. Lord, educate me. Teach me. Show me where I'm blind. Show me what I'm believing that is hindering me and having me here. Because it's not just happenstance. You've got to stop thinking that way. God's business, like what the atheist doesn't understand, is to train you up in faith. That you believe him. That there becomes a power and a solidness to you where there is no more fear. That God is relentlessly, like the song says, pursuing you. And there isn't a wall he won't tear down. And those walls are the walls that are blocking you and binding you. There isn't a wall that God is going to tear down that's blocking you from healing, that's blocking you from walking into an abundant, prosperous life in every kind of way. So if you find yourself in a struggle, it's because he's trying to break down that thing. You would have been in that struggle regardless. Some of you without Jesus, the situation's pretty hopeless. But thanks be to God and our Savior, Jesus Christ, who is saving us, who's redeeming us, who's reconciling all things, that even when you are in the midst of a mess that you have created, God is working good in you. He already knew you'd walk into that mess, and he has already got a plan to pull you out. He's not shocked when you make a wrong decision. He foreknew it. When you walk into wrong stuff, he's like, yeah, I saw that coming. That's why I've got plan L. Right? Because you already missed A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, right? You already missed that. And he's okay with that. He just runs with plan L. Because plan L is going to jump you to plan H. Plan H is going to get you to C. And C is going to get you to A. And you're going to walk out of it. Amen? Let's have a great